Well, good evening, everyone. I am Camille Nash. And first of all, I am delighted that you have joined us tonight. I am thrilled. In fact, I've been on tiptoe anticipation about this show tonight. Many of you that have been following me, you know I've been a little bit off the grid, but just because you don't see me doesn't mean that I'm not constantly at work with something. So, without further ado, I have a conversation tonight. The bullpen, first of all, uh, as you may know, was actually created and birthed out of my own experience. The book I have that is soon to hit the shelves entitled Will of Woman. I like to refer to it more so as a labor of love. And what's happened is I've been in multiple rooms, boardrooms, conference conversations, virtual conversations, Clubhouse, actually, just a number of different spaces where I've been hearing women so often, more than not, more times than I care to count, talk about what and how men should conduct themselves, not only in business, but also in life and in relationships. So, in the midst of that, I began to have more conversations, but actually recording those conversations and actually talking to men. So, who better to talk about what it looks like, what it should feel like, how to conduct and carry yourself than a man speaking about men to men. So that is what the bullpen is all about. This is a place where I will have conversations with heavy hitters all across the country and beyond, and even including the world, entrepreneurs, major titans in their space, where we will talk about what do those things really look like. And because of a number or a litany of experiences that I've had myself, not only in business and life and relationships, and sometimes we just get turned topsy turvy, one from one side of the world to the other. Even recently, I've had some challenges. But what I've come to learn is that there is a major value in relationship capital, which brings me to tonight's guest. I met this gentleman now at this point, it's about 5 years ago. Who's counting? But what a phenomenal encounter it was. It was truly by way of relationship capital. It was a sort of speak, an opportunity to work our net. And that's really what I want to talk more about, not just where we hear people say it's not about who you know or what you know, but who you know. I like to add to that because it's not just who you know, it's also who knows you and who cares enough to do something with it, which is why we're going to have this conversation tonight. And I couldn't really think of anyone that would be most fitting, not only to be my season premiere guest, but also because he is a titan. And I don't just say that, I like to consider myself a titan, but he really is a titan, and he's a powerhouse. He's a major game changer. And he doesn't just talk about being a person who values the importance of relationship capital and working nets, but also teaching, instructing, allowing people to walking people through the path of discipleship, if you will, on what does that truly look like. Now, I'll tell you, of course, I could read his long, extensive bio, but I thought I would make this not only a conversation that's pliable, important, necessary, but also informal. So, with that said, I want to take a quick moment and bring a gentleman to the stage or introduce it to you all or present to some. And his name is none other than DrWill Moreland.
Oh my God, it's such an amazing feeling to be here with you. Thank you so much. And before we even get started, let me thank you for everything that you're doing in this space and creating this space for individuals like me to come and share our wisdom and our nuggets. So thank you for being a phenomenal titan yourself. I'm excited. I've been excited about this evening for a long, long time. So thank you for having me.
Well, it's definitely my delight, and you all, as you all will see, learn, and discover that Dr. Will is also a very humble man. He doesn't really give you a pass on not doing things, but he's definitely a humble man. And what I first of all will want to, Dr. Will, get into the conversation around is, you know how a lot of times people think that you have some kind of silver spoon in your mouth. I mean, I know your story, but my goodness, you can tell it way better than I can. And they think, oh, they only see your glory, but they don't know your story. And because I know that you have a phenomenal one where you talk about your humble beginnings, I'd like to kind of just lay the groundwork, if we will, because we've got a whole 60 minutes, well, maybe 55 now at this point to talk. And but I want you just for a moment to share with people who Dr. Will is. And after you do that, I want to talk a little bit about the early days for Will.
Awesome. So yeah, my genesis starts off in this little city called Compton, California. I don't know if your viewers are familiar with Compton, but when I grew up in Compton, they literally said Compton was the worst city in America. And I like people to really wrap their minds around that. We have 50 states here in the beautiful United States, and each of those states have hundreds of cities. So I want you to think about how many cities are in the United States, and they pinpointed my little city as literally the worst city in America. And I tell people it was like a tale of two cities because I was raised by my grandmother and my single mother. So inside of my house, I was getting all the love, I was getting all the structure that any person could ever need. But then when I would walk out of my house, it was a whole different thing going on. It was surrounded by gangs. It was surrounded by drugs. It was the height of, the drug movement. It was the height of gangs. And so when I went outside, I was a very impressionable young man. I didn't have my father in my life. I didn't have very many male figures in my life. And so, unfortunately, you're going to always look for what you don't have. And I unfortunately started to look for that in the wrong places. So that led to me joining a gang. That led to me selling drugs. That led to me being arrested several times. And it wasn't until I was 18 years old, I got arrested for the last time. And I was in front of a judge, and he looked at me and he said, "Mr. Moreland, you're 18 now, and you're headed in the wrong direction." And he says, "If I put you in jail today, this record will follow you for the rest of your life. What I'm going to do for you is I'm going to allow you to leave my courtroom, and I want you to come back in 2 weeks and let me know what you're going to do with your life. And I want you to give me a reason why I shouldn't put you in one of our nice facilities, AKA jail." And so, Camille, when I left, I didn't know what I was going to tell this judge when I got back. So in my mind, I said, you know what? I'm going to party for 2 weeks because I'm getting ready to go away. So I'm just going to party. This is going to be my 2-week going away party. And I'm going to hang out with all of my buddies, hang out with all the homies. And I was just mentally preparing to go to jail. But thankfully, 3 days before I had to return to court, I was walking in the mall, and a gentleman walked up to me and he says, "Have you ever thought about going to the military?" And I looked at him, and in that moment, I don't know if you've ever had a moment where you don't understand the totality of the moment, but you know it's a moment. And that's what happened for me. As I looked Corey Oliver in the eyes, I said, "Yeah, man, come on, let's do it." And Corey was so shocked because Corey, he explained to me later on, he said, "Man, I had been walking up and down this mall for 2 years, and I hadn't got one person to join the military because the area that I grew up in, we didn't go to the military. We didn't go to the army. But I knew for me that that would be something the judge will look at pretty favorably." So thankfully, I joined. He takes me back to court in those 3 days. I tell the judge, I say, "Hey, I joined the military. Here's my recruiter right here." And he says, "Mr. Moreland, I think that you're making a wise decision. I wish you the best." He sent me on my way. I eventually left to go to the military. But I want to set this up a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
For those 18 years of my life living in Compton, I didn't go more than 20 miles outside of that arena. And so when I joined the military was the first time I had ever gotten on a plane. It was the first time I had ever left the state of California. It was the first time that I had ever left my little environment. And within 4 months, I had been to 2 new states, and then the Army stationed me in Germany. And now I'm all the way 8,000 miles away. You can imagine what type of mental transformation was going on in my mind to, after 18 years, never going anywhere, to now being in a whole, not just another state, but a whole different country.
Yes.
And here's something that happened to me. I was physically, and this is what happens to a lot of people, I was physically in a new environment. I was physically in a new opportunity, but mentally,
Mm.
I was still in Compton, California. And so within 3 months of me being in the military, I was getting ready to get kicked out because I was still handling situations as if I was still in Compton, California. So give you a quick little story about that. Where I grew up, gang culture, one of
Yeah.
the phrases that I was always met with was, where are you from? Where are you from?
Right.
So in California, when someone would ask you where you were from, they were asking you your gang affiliation. They were asking you what neighborhood you was from. So when I joined the military, I'm meeting people from literally all around the United States, all around the world. And that was one of the questions they would ask.
Yeah.
Where are you from? Well, in my mind, they were asking me gang activity.
Ooh.
So here I am in my Army uniform, and I'm thinking you asking me what neighborhood I'm from. So I'm ready to fight. I'm ready to fight everybody. And so dudes had to say, hold on, man. I'm from Georgia. I'm just asking you what state you from. And so mentally, all these shifts were going on in my mind. And thankfully, once again, I call these individuals disruptors in my life. I met another disruptor because I was getting ready to get kicked out. And the leader of our facility, the leader of our installation, a man by the name of Command Sergeant Major Babs, he once again looked at my record and he says, Moreland, I see where you come from. You come from Compton. If I kick you out the Army, what you gonna do, man? Where you gonna end up? You gonna end up back in jail? You're gonna end up dead? I'm going to allow you to come work with me one-on-one. You're going to be my personal assistant. And he took me and allowed me to be his personal assistant. And that started off my journey of being mentored. That started off my journey of being disciplined. And he asked me a question that changed my life. He says, Will, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Right.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And no one had ever asked me that because where I grew up, they all told me by the time I was 18, I'll be dead. And if I wasn't dead, I'll be in jail. So nobody ever talked to me about thinking about my future. And I tell him, I said, Sergeant Major, I don't know where I want to be. I don't know what I want to do. He says, well, go home. And on Monday, I want you to tell me what you want to do. So I go home that weekend. I'm thinking. I come back on Monday and I say, Sergeant Major, 2 things I know. Number 1, I want to be the best soldier I can be. And number 2, I want to get into college. He says, Will, I can help you with those 2 things. And certainly he helped me with that. I get into college. As it would be, I take one of my first courses in college is a speech course. I get in this.
So wait a minute, Dr. Will. Hold on.
Yeah.
I'm still stuck at the fact. Now, see, I've talked to you before, and I think I kind of know your story a little bit too. And I've done my research, and I know you, I think. But wait a minute, I didn't know about this 2-week thing. The 2 weeks with the judge. It reminds me of one of the judge. I think it was a judge. What's the judge from California, the black guy? It reminds me of him, where he
Joe Brown.
Joe Brown. That's what I'm thinking about. That's what reminds me of that same kind of story. What, even with your very young mind, because a lot of kids sometimes go back and listen to some of our content, and or at least I've been hearing some of the teenagers anyway. And so many times they think that they're too far removed to be thinking in an advanced, having an advanced mindset despite what's around them, because we all know it's not only hell outside the walls. Sometimes many of us are dealing with hell right inside our homes. Now we haven't even touched on on that topic yet, because some kids are still living in somewhat tumultuous environments. So therefore there's a switch or a shift of some kind that has to happen. There is, in my book, I talk a lot about the ACEs study and how in life, no matter where you are, especially as a child, if a child experiences at least 2 of a list of 5 things, a parent being in prison, or a parent dying early, they have a higher propensity to live a lifestyle that's certainly not favorable, as I heard could have been and just might have been your story had you not had that hard question of a person who just showed a little bit of concern and faith in the possibility for you by saying, hey, look, I'm giving you a timeline. If you don't do this, what did that feel like for you in that moment? Because something happened for the little Will.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought us back to that, because I've been really thinking about that. As a matter of fact, I was just having a conversation with my wife yesterday,
Mhm.
and I was just at such a place of gratitude. We were watching this documentary actually about Compton and
Mm.
about the area that I grew up in. And I sat there on the couch talking with her, and really having this sense of gratitude that I'm able to do what I do. And for many years, I had a sense of survivor's guilt, and
Mm.
because I made it out. When I was 16 years old, my best friend got killed in front of me and died in my arms. And when you talk about growing up in an environment like Compton, to your point, and that's what I was thinking about yesterday,
Wow.
the mental gymnastics that you have to go through in your mind just to survive.
Yeah.
When my grandmother would tell me to go to the store, in her mind, in her world, she's not knowing what's going on outside the house.
Mhm.
So my grandmother would say, go to the store and come right back. Now, a normal walk would be about 10 minutes to the store. But because of the neighborhood that I lived in, that 10 minutes literally turned into a 40-minute walk, because I had to walk all the way around so I wouldn't go down particular streets that had particular gang members on that street that I didn't want to have
Mhm.
an interaction with. And so I always remember my grandmother was like, what took you so long? You out there playing around? And in my mind, Grandma, I'm
Right.
trying to stay alive.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
trying to stay alive. And
Mm.
so I look at, that mental gymnastics that I went through. And so for any kid that is listening to us right now, this is what I know. There's somebody in your life that's going to be talking to you, that's going to be your opportunity for you to believe in what they're saying. Now, you're not going to have the evidence yet. So you're just going to have to believe. Like, they're going to talk to you. They're going to tell you that there's more on the inside of you. And I know you're not going to probably believe it. So you're going to have to borrow their belief in you. And that's what I had to do with these disruptors that came into my life. I had to believe in them. Going back to Corey, when he was telling me, man, if you join the military, man, you get in the army, you can change your life, man. It'll take you away from this environment. You can start your family, man. You can provide for your family and really have a different life. I didn't have any proof of any of that. I had to believe him. When Sergeant Major told me, hey, listen, man, I'm going to let you come work with me, and the Army is a great place. You can have a career. I didn't have any proof of that. I had to just believe in their belief. And so if there's anybody listening to us,
Mhm.
those
Oh.
demons that are on the inside of you, yeah, they're real. But what's even more real is that each and every one of us was born with a purpose.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
what I had to realize, that none of my mistakes, none of the trouble I had got into,
Mhm.
none of that disconnected me from my purpose or disqualified me to live
Mhm.
in my purpose. All I had to do was get back in alignment with
Mhm.
what my purpose was going to be. And
Yeah.
so what people see me doing today, this is what I was always born to do. This is
Mhm.
what I was designed to do. I was
Very
just
good.
out of alignment. And
Right.
once I got back into alignment, none of that going to jail, selling drugs, being in the gang, none of that disqualified me from the purpose and the plan that God had for my life.
I love that you said you made a definitive decision, and we have the power and the ability, no matter what age we are, to take our thoughts captive because those gremlins do come up, those goblins do come up, and sometimes we have to obviously kill the flesh daily. I'm a woman of faith. I know you are too, and as you're now transitioning from that space. I found it interesting what you said about grandma. I think all our grandmas told us that because somehow or another, whether a builder or a boomer, They didn't really realize what it was like to be on the ground at that time. All they knew, I like to use the analogy of a child. The baby, when he's down on the ground, he can see at his level. We can't see at his level down there unless we get down on the floor with them. Hence, one of the reasons why we're taught as parents, you should be doing that. Getting down on the level with them, not stay down there, but get down there long enough to be able to build them up. And sometimes, especially for those that have walked the trenches long before us, those builders that are listening, and of course those baby boomers that are listening. I'm not quite a baby boomer. I am still a Gen X, but even in those instances, the experiences are going to be different. A manufacturing age and compared to a technology age, you're going to handle life differently. So thank you so much for mentioning that piece because I find that very pliable. When you look at going back to Corey now, so you made a decision. You said what was already in us. I mean, if you're an oak tree, you're an oak tree even when you were an oak seed. As an acorn, you're still an oak tree, just in a different form. So at that point, because the gifting of being a power networker, as I like to say, even though I know you're a dynamic speaker, but you still have to be able to connect well with people, not just connect, but connect well with people first to be able to continue on and be a phenomenal speaker. Let's talk a little bit about Corey. That was the gentleman from the military. And so he encouraged you. And of course, as we all know, you had some level of trepidation.
Oh yeah. So, once again, when Corey mentioned to me about going to the Army, I had all this baggage. At this time, I'm a gangbanger, a convicted drug dealer, all this stuff, been in jail multiple times. And so the picture that he was painting, I didn't even know it was possible for me. And so the Army gave me the opportunity, thankfully, just alignment wise. All the things that I got in trouble before was when I was a minor. And so the Army was able to expunge my record. And so I was able to start with a new record. I went in with a waiver and all this type of stuff. And when I think back to that moment, when I told Corey I wanted to join, and to the time that I was going to go into basic training, it was about a 4-month period. And it was a big battle. And literally every single day, he would come and grab me before I could wake up and run back to the streets, because he had to make sure that I stayed out of trouble in these 4 months. And I mean, I had family members, I had my mom. Everybody told me I was crazy for, to be totally transparent. Once again, in our neighborhood, the thing was, Black people don't go to the military. Yeah, your dad went, but that's because they got drafted and they got drafted, but we don't do that. Right. I remember the deacons at the church, and everybody was telling me, like, young man, you don't want to do that. You don't want to throw your life away. You don't want to, And so I had all of these voices in my mind, but I knew for some reason, for me, this was the best decision for me. And for those of you that are listening to me, there's going to come a time in your life where you're going to have to make a decision. It's not going to make sense to everybody else, but it makes sense to you. It makes sense to you. And you're going to have that courage, and you're going to have that faith. Like Martin Luther King said, I may not see all the steps, but I see the next step. And you're going to have the faith just to take that next step. And for me, I just had the faith to take the next step, even though it went against literally all my friends, homies, family members, church members. Everybody said, man, you're doing the wrong thing. I knew for me, it was the right thing.
Yes. And what a powerful moment in time for you, because that very same moment has come up thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of times, or even millions at this point for you since then. And in many instances, it's a daily decision. And I don't like to say choice, because a choice is you're giving me a plethora of options. With a decision, you cut some things off. You say, no, this one is no longer an option. This is exactly what I'm doing, because it means to cut. So you cut out anything else that you may be considering. So when we look at him making this deposit in you, and you saying, I am coming into who I am, or walking into who I am, because you're learning or discovering more about yourself. What's interesting about your story is I always see you post a lot of pictures about your Compton days. And I find it admirable, because seemingly, as you already know, you've been and are connected to a lot of major heavy hitters, names people know, but sometimes they only show one photo. They're one photo as a child. I've always found it admirable that I don't believe you ever forget. I believe that you have some kind of mural, maybe not, but some type of mural, whether it's in your mind or visibly, that says, I already remember. I know who I am and I recall from whence I've come. However, at the same time, it's a reminder. I remember Oprah telling the story years ago how she was able to capture and purchase the list of ownership that a landowner or a white owner had years ago of all the slaves, and she purchased that list for millions of dollars just to be able to put it up on her wall to say that my name was bought by somebody else in the past. So what am I going to do with my name while I'm living and have control over my name? So when I see those pictures that you post, I often think about that because you are owning it and you're reminding people that it doesn't matter where you start. It's all about where you finish and or while you what you are doing while you're aiming toward that finish, because we don't ever finish until our time here is done. With that being said, I also know that you were a pastor at one time. So let's talk about how important your faith is to you.
Yeah, and before we let me talk just about the picture and why I do that. When I was growing up, I didn't have many images of successful people that looked like me.
Mm-hmm.
In my growing up, we had athletes and we had drug dealers. We had athletes and we had drug dealers. That was the major way that I saw that people could get really big money. Everybody else had like a normal job. And so for any kid, you're going to be attracted to the shine. And so one of the reasons why I do that, I'm on a crusade because I want to give people another option. I want you to be able to see a successful individual that doesn't play sports, that is not in entertainment, that you can with your, and this is not to say anything against anybody in entertainment or sports, but the majority of us are not going to be in entertainment and we're not going to be in sports. So I want those individuals to know that you can create a lifestyle. I tell people a couple of years ago, I was over in Anguilla and LeBron James, he was in one villa and I was in the other villa. And so I tell people I don't dribble a ball, but I still ball, right? So
Right.
you can do that thing, right? And so to answer your question, my faith is very important to me. Like I said, inside my house, my grandmother, I come from a whole family of pastors and ministers. My great grandmother started churches. My grandmother and grandfather started churches. So I come from a long line of pastors and ministers. And so faith for me has played a humongous role in my life. I was sharing with some people the other day, like in anything, you talked about a decision. You have to make a decision in your life. I was just sharing with people, there's millions of things that you can believe in, but you have to make a decision on what you're going to believe in. And for me, I decided years ago to believe in the principles of the Bible. They work for me. They haven't led me astray. And so I'm good with them until the day I die. So my faith for me is huge.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, it is. I agree with you. When it comes to faith, sometimes, especially in business, Dr. Will, and many of our listenership is right now anywhere between 18 and 70. I believe up to 75. There's some a little small percentage, and sometimes, as I mentioned earlier, about how when you've walked the path already, you've forgotten what that may have been like and or even now. I know one of my challenges in faith over the years, I'll be transparent, has always been how people will more often than not spend a whole lot of time talking about the poor will be among us always. And I like to say, yes, they will, but that does not mean that it has to be me. So with that being said, I don't would not want to share or spread the philosophies of belittling or be meaning. So because we constantly have to be reminded of who we are, or at least remind ourselves so that we don't go back. We have over 80,000 thoughts per day, and 60,000 of them are just really images of the past. So it becomes a question of how much of that is really real and or even truly authentic. So our faith, I believe, is extremely important because it's all about who you say you are, right? So what I believe I am and who God says I am. That's how I look at it. When it comes to interfacing, or sometimes in business, when you look at your ability to get to a space where you have discovered more about who you are, you've made some hard decisions, and you've had to stare the past in the face and even have those tough conversations with family members about what's possible for you. And you've had to carve out your own path and create a new way, or a new straight way that certainly, which I won't give away yet, open up the path for thousands of people, even family members. When it comes to you staring the past in the face, and sometimes we know that it does come up, how do you handle it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So as we unpack the past, everybody has to understand that the past, as we relate to the past in the present, all of our past is made up. And what I mean by that is we give it meaning. So, for instance, in your past, you may have experienced a divorce in your past. Now, when I talk to you in your present, you're going to give that experience meaning. You're going to tell me what that experience was for you, because I don't know what that experience was for you. So, for instance, some people say, man, when I got a divorce, it was the worst day of my life. Well, they made that up. That's what they decided to say about that day. Somebody else could say, you know what? That was the day when I realized that I wasn't going to shortchange myself, that I was worthy of this type of treatment in my life. And anybody that was going to be in my life was going to respect me, love me, honor me. And that was the day that I realized that I was worthy of the highest love on this planet. You
Yes.
get to choose. You get
Mm-hmm.
to choose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When I grew up, I was molested.
Ooh.
Being molested, I had to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
How was I going to carry that experience into the present? For me, that experience taught me how to forgive at the highest level. So for me, I didn't become a victim, I became a powerful forgiver. And so moving on for the rest of my life, that was never going to, anything like that was never going to happen again. So anything that happened wasn't going to happen at that level. So anything that happened, it was easy for me to forgive, because if I could forgive that heinous situation that happened at that level, then anything other than that, I could easily forgive. And so for me, I became a powerful forgiver. I didn't become a victim of what happened. I became a powerful forgiver. So when you think about the past, when I think about everything that I've been through, I realized that all of it was a training ground. And how I like to look at it, and you're a woman of faith, the Bible says, by his stripes, we are healed.
Mm-hmm.
By
Mm-hmm.
his stripes, meaning those stripes did nothing for him, it did everything for me.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that I've experienced in life, it wasn't about me, it was about the people that I was going to encounter on my journey. And so when I look back, everything that I've ever encountered, I'm able to use it now in my present, because it wasn't about me, it was about the individual. So I can now go into a prison and look somebody in the eye and tell them you can change your life around. I can look at somebody in the eye who was molested or who was raped and tell them you don't have to be a victim. If I didn't have those experiences, then I probably wouldn't have empathy, or I wouldn't be able to relate to them. And if I'm not able to relate to them, then I can't have a relationship with them. And so when I look at everything that I've been through, I can look in present day and see that my past was just preparation for my purpose.
Yeah, I love that you brought up about the relationship piece of it. You have some very dear friends, of course. A couple of them I know, but more particularly when it comes to navigating those waters. I mean, in the bullpen, we talk the whole premise of this show is to not be surface, to have the real tough conversations, and more importantly, because the idea is, yes, I'm a woman in the bullpen, but I'm having these powerful conversations with thought leaders, entrepreneurs, CEOs around the country in various aspects of life, even in nonprofit too. There came a point where you still had to build some level of trust to build relationships. And so I want to switch gears a little bit around how you were able to catapult the experiences that you already had into building mighty relationships, some that developed into even greater friendships, and or even just business relationships, before we talk more about the whole networking piece, because really, truthfully, we've been talking networking all along.
Yeah. So for me, once again, coming from where I came from, I was very damaged. I was very damaged when it came to relationships, and especially when it came to relationships with other men. In my environment, it was always an aggressive nature. I grew up in an environment where if you look at someone the wrong way, it could cost you your life. If you said the wrong thing, it could cost you your life. If you smiled, it could cost you your life. So when it comes to it's such a heavy thing, because we're designed for connection. We're naturally designed for connection. So when you're doing something unnatural, and this is why so many men end up dying prematurely, because the stress, we're holding on to things that we're not naturally designed to hold on to. You're not designed to hold on to animosity. You're not designed to hold on to anger. But when you're forced to live in this type of environment, just the other day, I'm walking in the mall and I see this guy, and he has this face on, he's looking, where I come from, they say being hard, he has this hard exterior.
Mean mugging.
Right. He was mean mugging. Right. And I went over to him and I said, hey, man, we're in Scottsdale, Arizona. You don't got to be hard in Scottsdale, Arizona. And he looked at me and he started laughing. And we had this conversation, and he was actually from Los Angeles, California. And I shared with him, I'm from Compton, but I knew what he was going through. I knew, because where I grew up, if you smiled at somebody, if you looked at somebody, and here we are almost 50 years old, and he's holding on to that. And we had this moment, and I said, look, man, you in Scottsdale, Arizona, man, you ain't got to be hard, right? And so we had this moment around this. And so for me, when it came to building relationships, getting into the military, you meet people literally from all different parts of the United States. And it was this reconditioning for me. Like I told you earlier, when people would ask me where I was from, I had to learn I'm from Los Angeles, California. I'm from Southern California, and have these interactions. And I began to understand that the human experience was not a monolithic experience, that we were all experiencing life in different ways. And then I realized that many of us have went through different struggles and different setbacks and different obstacles in our lives. And as I began to just analyze myself and begin to shed myself of all of this anger and all of this hostility that was on the inside of me. And I realized, Will, you could either go the rest of your life being mad at the world and being mad at situations that have occurred, or you can live the rest of your life and allow it to be the best of your life. And when I made that decision, I decided that I was going to look at every individual as an individual. And so a lot of times what we do is, I dated Camille, it didn't work out. All women are nothing.
Right. That's what they say.
Right. I had to learn. No, I had a relationship with her. It didn't work out. And she only represents her. She doesn't represent all of womanhood. She only represents her. But if I hold her as a representation of all women, then I very well possibly will miss out on the woman that's right for me. And so when we talk about relationships, you got to understand, especially when people get married, we're coming with all of this baggage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we don't see it, right? Visually, you don't see it, but you got to mentally understand that whoever you connect with, my daughter just recently got married, and I was sharing with her, you didn't just marry this guy that's taking you out on a date. You're marrying all of his years of experiences, and you need to find out what his experiences have been in life so you can know who he is.
Yes, yes,
And
indeed.
and so for so many of us, we got it's always an ongoing process about relationships, because to be in a healthy relationship, the Bible says, love your neighbor as yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not even in love with yourself, it's going to be very difficult to love anybody else.
So good that you said that, because I just believe that many of us don't know what that looks like. And I have to be really forward about the fact that to some degree, we did not get the proper training or even saw it truly modeled out in front of us. That model behavior we missed out on. Doesn't give us an excuse. But I know that you met your two pretty important people in your life, and like I said, I know you have a whole litany of others. One of the things I heard you say years ago, you probably don't even remember it, but then again, you just might. And I had never heard anybody say it. You said I'd ask you who was your best friend. In fact, we have a little funny you with your magazine. I put that little question out for you, and I won't say all of what I said because then only you and I would know. Then I would know it was you. It wasn't a fake because people infiltrate these pages. So I know you had said years ago that your favorite. I asked you who's your best friend, and you said me and myself. You said you said me. You said me. I'm my best friend. And I laughed because when I first met you, we had lunch and with another friend, and we were just having a good time talking business and media and strategy, and looking at doing some partnerships. And I remembered you saying that. So it really made me laugh hard when I asked you that question, because I was expecting one of two answers. Either I was expecting a said person who we know, or you to say that. And I said, okay, only he would know that I could ask him that question. That was hilarious. I just thought I had to tell you that because it really just took me out. I laughed so hard. But what I love most about it is it's necessary, because many of us don't know who we are. And the whole aspect, or one great aspect of this show, has been about the misogyny and the rude and negative behaviors that I've seen from men, just with how they will on certain platforms demean women, diminish women, forgetting that the fact that it took a woman to get you here. Not going to go down that, not really looking to explore that. Not much tonight, not in this conversation, because there's a whole lot of other things attached to it. But what I love most about you bringing that to the forefront in the military or on your own self discovery journey, let's talk for a couple minutes about two very valuable relationships that you were able to not only develop, cultivate, and continue for decades. Tell us who those two people are.
Yeah, the first one would be my wife, obviously, of 26 years. And the second individual would be who's a brother now to me and a business partner, Dr. Burnett Joseph. And we've been friends now for 21 years, and met both of these individuals in the military. And I knew on night number one of meeting my wife, I knew she was going to be my wife. And we literally had a long discussion about the future the very first night that I met her. When I met Dr. V, we hit it off, and we hit it off two things. Once again, goes back to knowing yourself. So I knew who I was. I knew the lifestyle that I wanted to create. And so when I met my wife, that's literally what I talked about. I said, listen, it made no sense when we were talking. It made no sense, but it made complete sense to me. And so here I am, a 19-year-old, and I'm asking her, I said, so this is going to be my life. I'm going to be traveling all around the United States and all around the world, and I'm going to have this company, and I need to know Can you be married to this type of guy? I'm going to be maybe gone, maybe something like 10 to 15 days out the month. And she's looking at me like, you're a private in the Army. What are you talking about? You're going to be traveling all around the world. I said, don't worry about all that. I'm just asking you, can you handle that? Because that's literally going to be my life. And but I was very clear on that. And when I met when I met Dr. V, I knew what type of people I wanted in my life, quality people that I wanted in my life. And so when it talks about trust, the reason why I can get to trust what I call in the speed of light is because I have a vision. So immediately when I talk to someone, I already know if they fit that vision. I can just tell by their conversation if they fit the vision. And so, for instance, if just, as an example, if I say I'm on my way to New York, then I know what direction I'm going. If that person tells me, oh man, I can't wait to get to California, I love California. Well, we're going in two different directions. And the principle is, how can two walk together unless they be agreed? And so instead of trying to fight with you and trying to convince you to go to New York, that just means that relationship is not one that I need to invest in, because that person's heart and that person's desire is to go to California. And so a lot of times when we come to relationships, we're trying to force people we're trying to convince people to do things, especially in the marriage, like, oh, I'm going to fix him. I'm going to fix her. I'm going to get them. That's not the relationships you want to be in, And so in business, I have the same way. I have the same thing. I have people reach out to me all the time. They want to partner up. And so all I do is just listen. Oh, what is it that you want to do? Oh, what is it? Okay. What does that look like for you? And if it doesn't line up with my vision, it doesn't mean they're a bad person. Doesn't mean their ideas are bad. It just means we're not to connect on that. And I don't want to get in the way of that, because you really should be connecting with someone else. And I don't want to get in the way of that. So I politely bow out. But if I know exactly what I want to do and the direction I'm going, then I can definitely then tell that individual, oh yeah, we fit. That fits like a glove. And so that's kind of how I look at trust and how I look at building relationships.
So when we talk about thank you so much for that. When we talk about the building of the relationships, and with tonight's whole show really being about the power of networking. Now, you all have gotten some really good, not only nuggets, but just some powerful insight on how to truly walk this path. And what I love most about what you said is how you have to know where you want to go. We lack for not only a lack of knowledge, but also not having a vision. So even if you don't really know what it looks like, I remember, I can recall at one point in my life when I had my younger, they're older now, but they were my first set of kids, and they're twins. So when I first gave birth to them, there were a lot of things I did not know about parenting, but there were a few things that I knew for sure, unequivocally, I did not want to do. And one of them was cursing my kids out or calling them names. Now, I may not have known a lot of other things, but those were two things I knew for sure, that I did not want to call them anything else other than their name. Now, they might have been acting like something, but I didn't want to call them by anything else other than their name or curse at them because of what that felt like for me. And I also understand the power of words, which leads me into the next part of our conversation. When you look at all of what you've been able to accomplish with networking and using your voice, discovering more about who you are, being definitive about what it is that you did not want. I always say, when you don't know what you want, at least be very clear about what you don't want. So with that, in the cultivating of a marriage, almost 30 years, some people can't stay together 30 days. So that's a lot to celebrate. And of course, lengthy relationships. Now, y'all that's listening, you might know a little bit. I'm gonna have to change my other question, get another question with Dr. Will, so I'll know it's him. You all got a few little insight. But I want to now just look more at the power of the word, and look more about the impact. I didn't read your litany of accolades. I know that you're a very humble person, but I also know that you don't shy away, nor do you dismiss the mighty accomplishments that you have been able to maintain and continue to make.
Yeah, so we, going back to our faith, we have shared faith, and in our faith, we realize that we live in a voice activated world. So we've been made in the image and likeness of God. And so if you look at being made in the image and likeness of God, and you just go back to the book of Genesis, and God begins to speak. Nothing is seen unless he speaks. And so he begins everything that he wanted to see, he began to speak. And so it says it was darkness on the face of the earth, and God said, let there be light. And so in your own personal life, because you have that same creative ability, you have to start speaking those things that be not as though they were. Right. And so earlier in my career, I understood this, that we live in a voice activated world. And so I began to speak everything that I wanted to see. And so like even on my wall right here, if I read, if I look at my wall, it's all these statements that I read every single day, because I realize the world is activated by my voice. And so when I go about creating, I literally have this list that I created 20 years ago. It's called my 101 list. And on this list was all these things that I wanted to accomplish and all these things that I wanted to experience. Now, some of them I have control over them in some sense, and some of them I don't. But for instance, on my list, it's literally walk my daughter down the aisle. On that list is to see my children develop into good citizens. Mm-hmm. I've been saying this since they were little. I've been saying this since they were little babies. This is what I wanted to see. As it relates to my speaking career, like literally on my list, speak for an hour and get paid $25,000, share the stage with this person, travel to these things, experience this type of lifestyle. Like literally everything. I kind of think of myself as a movie director, that I've written out a movie script, and all I'm literally doing is now finding the right actors to go into my movie, and we're playing it out. Like literally, I reference to my list all the time. I'm just playing it out, and I sit down sometimes, and I used to wonder how it was going to happen. I'm not too concerned anymore how it's going to happen. I just know it's going to happen. And so for anybody listening to us, it does. It starts with how you're speaking. And so once again, call those things that be not as though they were. And so I never talk about what I don't have. I only talk about what I want. And so going back to the principle of God, when it says there was darkness on the face of the earth, the Bible doesn't say God was like, oh my, look how dark it is. Man, I wish somebody would have. He just talked about what he wanted. He didn't have a pity party. He just talked about what he wanted. So everything that he wanted to see, he started to say. And so if you're listening to me, I challenge you right now. You said it earlier, Camille. I didn't know initially the same way as you. I didn't know initially everything I wanted, but I know what I didn't want. One of the things I didn't want life to be a mathematical problem. And what I mean by that is I grew up where if you paid your phone bill, you may not have money for light bill. If you paid your light bill, you may not have enough for gas. If you got some gas, you may not have. I didn't want life to be a mathematical problem. I went to the store and my mom would shop and she would say, oh, let me know when you get to $30, stop. Now, it didn't matter that we had $70 worth of food in the basket. Well, why would you get $70 worth of food if you didn't? I don't know if she thought some magic was going to happen at the register, but she would always be like, once it get to 30, stop. Right. I didn't want life to be like that. I knew I didn't want to have unhealthy relationships. I'm very big on that. To your point, growing up in that type of toxic environment where you heard grown-ups call kids dumb this and mother sucker and all that kind of stuff. I said, I didn't want that. I didn't want unhealthy relationships. I knew I wanted to live a full life. I had experienced, my best friend died at 16. Other friends had died. I knew I wanted to live full term, whatever that meant. I wanted to live full term. And so I didn't know exactly what I did want, but I knew exactly what I didn't want. And so it was easy for me to select friends and choose what I was going to do in life. But it all started with me saying, Will is going to be a top CEO. Like literally everything that people see manifest in my life, I have it written down and I talk about it every single day. Like right now, I'm looking, I have my obituary on my wall right now. I read it every single morning. And it says, he was an accomplished thought leader that traveled the world to impact and inspire and influence others. He is a best-selling author of over 150 books that are read throughout the world. Dr. Will considered the world his playground and loved meeting people. His love for travel developed while serving the United States Army. As founder of Moreland Training Associates, the #1 company for culture impact, the company has supported over 10,000 organizations to create work environments that are diverse, inclusive, and fun. Dr. Will was passionate about youth development and donated over $600 million to support youth development around the world. Dr. Will leaves a host of family and friends that loved him. I say that every single morning. So every day, my life is about taking a step to ensure that when I die, my family can take this obituary off the wall and read it exactly at my funeral.
So good, so good. I believe I remember hearing that once, and so as a man thinketh. So many years ago. And a lot of people find that morbid. I find it mighty, mighty powerful, because it's going to be a reminder for you. It's also going to be a light. When you were talking about when God said about it being dark, he said, let there be light, let there be light. And it was. So because of that, we have the power to use our words. And I don't know about you, but we're almost out of time already. So I'm already going to have to find another hour to bring you back. And this, you all, you may not realize, it's been a conversation. We don't talk all the time. It's very, very few and far between. But he definitely was one of the first people that I met when I moved over to or relocated to the West Coast, and definitely been just really inspirational, encouraging, even if we don't talk. And so I want to take a moment really quickly to publicly thank you for my birthday wishes. I thank you for that, for sending that over. Now, though, when we talk about the power of networking and working your net, we know we need our words. You right now are preparing. So I do thank you for carving out some time for me, preparing for your annual Master the Mic moment and or event that's forthcoming. And I know that you didn't ask to talk about it, but it's something that I wanted to at least bring to our audience. We will make this content available in other places wherever you find your favorite podcast after today. So there's going to be an opportunity for more people to come back and listen and learn. But if you don't mind, I know this is not the class, but if you don't mind, just taking a moment to share with our audience a little bit about mastering the mic and how a person can make it be one of the most mighty, inspirational, and intuitive networking events they've ever experienced.
Yeah. So if you're listening to us and you're a person that wants to impact the world, and when I say impact the world, I'm not just saying that to say that, but I'm saying you really have a mission, you have a message that you want to get out to the masses. I created this course and I created this 3-day live event here in Phoenix. And the next one we have coming up is October the 20th through the 22nd. You're going to get an opportunity to invest with me 3 days where we're going to literally go in and we're going to dig deep into your life, your experiences, your wins, your losses, your mistakes. And I'm going to teach you how you can take all of that, how you can take your mess and turn it into a message, and how you can take your message and monetize it, right? I believe that your bank account should reflect your brilliance. And if you're listening to this podcast, I know you're a brilliant soul. And so when you come and invest these 3 days to hang out with me in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona, we're literally going to do a deep dive into your life. And I'm going to show you how you can pull out and how you can extract the best stories and how you can help other people, and how you can then take that message. I tell our speakers that are part of our academy, your message is someone's medicine. And I want you to think about that. I said earlier in this interview that everything that you go through, it's not about you. It's about somebody else. It's about the impact. And so when I look at it, if you're an individual like me, I went through a lot of crap growing up. And I didn't know what I was supposed to do with that crap until God showed me. I want you to use that to inspire, impact, and influence other people. But I had to package it. If you think about a movie, if someone's doing a documentary about your life, they can't put 50 years, 20 years into a movie. A movie's only 2 hours. So they have to find the best parts of your story and then make that into the movie. Well, that's the same thing we're able to do with your keynote. We take the best parts of your life and the best part of your story and put it into a powerful keynote, which is a product that you can now go and offer to the masses and offer to different corporations and associations and organizations and get paid for your message, get paid for your brilliance, so your bank account can reflect your brilliance. And that's Master the Mic. So I would love for you to come and join us. Just go to masterthemiclive.com, October the 20th through the 22nd. I would love to invest that time with you.
Outstanding. Dr. Will, I have one more question for you as we come to a close. And it's really my signature question that I love to ask everyone eventually. And that is, we've been talking about the power of networking, rocking your words, communication, building mighty relationships. What would you say is the lesson that took you the longest to learn?
Oh, that's a powerful question. And it's one that I'm still learning today. And it's literally getting out of my own way, getting out of my own way. That's a lesson that I continuously learn. God would share things with me. And like we talk about that past again, I would allow my past to disqualify me. And he keeps saying, I know your past. You're acting like I don't know your past. And we treat it like, maybe God doesn't have this insight on me. Maybe he don't know I went to jail.
Right.
So that's why he's maybe giving me this assignment, right? And so it's really continuously getting out of my own way and just trusting, okay, God, if you're saying this is what I'm supposed to do, this is what I'm supposed to do. And just not getting in my own way. That's the biggest and hardest lesson that I endure on a day-to-day basis. And that's why the Bible says you got to be renewed in the spirit of your mind every single day.
So true. So true. So true. And I say that often about me. So thank you for not leaving me out on this branch by myself. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Again, it has been my delight to have you today. What a weighty conversation. My goodness, you always come with it. And I thank you really just for being transparent and not holding anything back. Of course, I always tell folks, look, you can tell the story. Sometimes you can't tell it all, not to everybody. It depends on the room. But I do thank you for being candid here with this courageous conversation and really just looking to make deposits in men and women, more particularly men in this space, because who better to learn it from than another man, another brother who is walking in your shoes or has already not only walked in them, but mastered them. So again, I say, I salute you. I thank you. You're still my brother, my friend. And I'm looking forward to doing even greater things with you on this coast, we're in the West Coast, and also in Phoenix, as you like to say, where God loves the vacation. That's my favorite. And again, I salute you and I thank you. So until the next time, we'll see you. We'll see you around. All right. Well, wasn't that a mighty conversation? I hope you all found something really not only inspirational, but also motivational. Something that's going to get you up out of your chair. That's going to inspire you to do something with it. There is an old adage that talks about people will go to conferences, and I don't even know how old it is. I believe it's true. They will go to conferences. They will read books sometime. And I say sometime because the average person, the average person only reads one book a year and they don't even finish that one. So most of the time when a person will attend a conference or a seminar or webinar of some type of education, unless they're being tested in a class, generally they lose it if they don't incorporate it within 24 hours. It goes in and it goes right out. So my encouragement to you is that you will not allow this to fall on deaf ears. You will take it in and you will chew it up, you will ingest it, and you will actually look for ways to actually walk it out or institute it in your life. With that said, I want to take a few minutes just to kind of share with you what my will theory is for today. The conversation around networking Dr. Will, sometimes, some people think he's so deep, but yet he is certainly a critical thinker, yet he's still very, very practical. So I'm sure you could find something that he said that you can actually institute in your life and in your family's life and change the trajectory for generations to come. You all know we have to bring back. So my first item when it comes to my will theory today is what Dr. Will said, that if you don't have it in front of you, if you've never seen it, borrow somebody else's experience. He said, borrow someone else's belief. Now, you've got to get your own belief. I like to say it this way: when you flip that light switch on, you believe at some point it's going to come on. Why? Based on experience. So if you're not seeing it in your life right now, go read a book, go watch something that's going to help give you the deposit, or allow you the opportunity to see that behavior lived out and not be a fantasy. So borrow somebody else's experience, borrow somebody else's belief, so that can become what you see in your world. Secondly, he talked about being a decision maker. You can't have all these balls up in the air all at the same time. Now, I like to say I do a lot of times. Yet at some point, you're going to have to decide what is going to pull, grab, and or admonish your intense attention. So you're going to have to make a decision somewhere about what you allow in, whether that's coming from family or friends. And you're also going to have to make a decision on where you will be laser focused. You heard Dr. Will's story about decisioning. And next, he also talked a lot about being transparent, looking at what has been and realizing that no longer has to be your life. My favorite, number 4, your voice is an activator. I talk a lot about our voices, using our voices, using our voice. We have to see it. We got to say it first in order to see it. I like how he said, your voice activates everything, just like God. When God spoke, it was. So I want to encourage you, or in fact, employ you to self-examine what it is that's coming out of your mouth. And I have to do the same thing. So take some introspection. I like to look at it from a self-interrogating perspective of what is it that I'm saying in order to change what I'm seeing. So I hope that has been really good for you, that you will realize the importance of rocking your words, asking the appropriate questions, because I was always told you're only going to get the answers that you're really looking for by asking the right question. And I do hope that if it's your desire to use your words and use your words in a way that will change lives, I'm going to encourage you to check it out. Check out How to Master the Mic. See, everybody talks about what they want. Everybody wants to lose weight, but nobody wants to do the work. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. There's a choice behind the things that we decide we want for our life. There are consequences behind it. It's going to cost us something. So I hope today has been a one for the books that will change everything about what you are seeing in your life. You all do me a favor and go over and invade everything that Dr. Will is doing. I promise your life will not be the same. So again, I want to now take a moment and just thank you for giving me a little bit of your time today. Go back and listen to whatever we talked about tonight. You may have missed something. We need to hear things at least 7 to 15 times before it actually resonates, or before it actually grabs hold. So go back and find something that will allow you to change the rest of this year. Don't wait until December 31st. Your December 31st is today, so that you can close out this last quarter powerful, mighty, and see something you've never seen by January 1, rather than waiting for everybody else. All right. So you are going to have a wonderful week, and I'll see you on the next episode of The Bullpen.